Hello, friends, RSQers. Welcome back. Today we have Bryan Wilson here, the author of Power of the Stars. The very first book we read in our indie month of June was The Forsaken Planet. And at the end of the year, we finally got to get to the rest of his books. Dakota has in there. We got Son of the Prophets book 2 and The Dark Element book 3 with two more to come, I believe, is the plan.
Yes, the hope's the five total novels. There's one novella written right now, and I might write one more novella between books 4 and 5.
Exciting. Well, we have really enjoyed this series, especially from, with Indie Month, we were a little skeptical on how things would go. Just we hadn't read an indie book before, and we were blown away. Starting with book 1. So tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got to where you are, how you started writing, anything you want to tell us.
Your
Yeah,
superhero
so
or
What was
supervillain
yours?
origin story.
Yeah.
yeah. So my origin story, I guess, would probably be 12 years old. I was assigned The Hobbit to read in one of my classes, and we were given a month to read it, and I blew through it in the first weekend. And that was the first kind of book that just took me away, if you will. I think all of us readers kind of understand that feeling. And from there, it's been nonstop my whole life. I went to my teacher the next week and I just said, "You got to let me know what else is like this out there." And she was like, "Oh, well, I got the perfect books for you. There's actually a trilogy right after it." So, and yeah, I've just been reading since then. Hardcore. It's always been my escape. I had a lot of anxieties as a kid and was kind of just a little anxious about a lot of stuff. And that was kind of my getaway for when stuff like that would happen. I could disappear from the world for a bit. And it was my favorite hobby when I was younger. And eventually that transitioned to just me wanting to be a writer. Kind of told myself when I was young, I said, "Oh, I'm going to be one of the youngest writers there ever is." That didn't happen. I didn't publish till I was, let's see, I was 37 when I published my first The Forsaken Planet. Didn't work out that way, but I actually started writing The Forsaken Planet. I was still a teenager. I think I was 17 or 18 at the time. Yeah, it was a 20-year project basically of a little bit here, a little bit there, and life happened in between that. I started a separate business. I got married. I had kids, and finally in the back end of 2022, I came back to it and I read it for what was probably the first time in 5 or 6 years at that point, and I just bias. I wrote it, but I loved it, and I was just like, I gotta get this out there. I gotta at least see
Like,
like
man, who
will
wrote
anyone else
this?
like
They
this?
did such a good job.
I have literally said to other people, like, it had been so long since I read it, it kind of felt like I was reading someone else's work. So I told myself I had to get it out there. I had to know, and that was when I really bunkered down. And I hired a developmental editor. He looked at it. I hired beta readers because I was never part of any like writing circles, or I wasn't on the book socials yet. So I paying people was really the only way I had to go and know I could get good feedback. So, but yeah, I went hard at it. That I started, I want to say, in like November 2022, and I published the book in June 2023, and the rest really became history. I was blown away by the reception that it received. I had started about 2 months before I published, starting to get in with book socials, mainly Instagram, and I was fortunate enough. I just kind of reached out of the blue, and I was fortunate enough that quite a few of the more prominent reviewer names on there, I guess I just sent them a good pitch, and they really, really enjoyed it, and that just gave me the boost to get going. And my business outside of writing was very slow at that time. I'm in home building, and just kind of took a tank at the 2023, 2024, and that opened up the door for me to just kind of go hard and get books 2 and 3 done. And I did book two, book three, and the novella within the next 2 years after publishing the Forsaken Planet. And rest is history. It's been a 2 year grind like crazy, but I can say I finally feel like an author.
Well, I mean, the time was worth it. I mean, look what you've done here with just, with
Hey,
that amount
and
of time, thank you for
they're not
sticking with it.
small either. They're not small books. So
No,
it's
no. I mean,
definitely like
I'm a chunky book reader. So, my favorite series is Wheel of Time. We all know how long some of those books are.
Mhm.
There was
Mhm.
just never going to be, at least for my debut. I mean, And anyone who's writing and is thinking about writing their debut, don't do that. You don't want chunky books because if you're a first time author, right there, you're going to kill yourself for trad publishing 100%. No one's taking a trad book from a debut author that's not known in the circles or known for something else that's over 100,000 words. And it depends on genre, but that's probably sci-fi fantasy genre right there.
Yeah, and you
So
you did a good
Interesting.
job keeping it under. That's weird, I think, to say under control, but we've read so many books that try to do a lot of things and they just can't keep up. It's like they had an idea of all the points that they wanted to hit, and then you feel
mhm,
like you're running the whole time.
yeah,
But you did a good
I think
job.
Well, the
It
pacing was
flows
great.
really smoothly.
so.
Hmm.
The only book I've ever hired a developmental editor was the first book, and I learned a lot from that process. And that was I don't know if you guys know the prices of things, but developmental editor is usually a lot more pricey than like a line edit or a proofread, that type of stuff. So I paid for it, but it was all good, very valuable feedback, and it definitely helped.
That's one of the questions I had too, because the first author crew, author duo we interviewed was LK Winter, and they said they had a pretty poor experience hiring just support. And so that was one of the questions I had was, did you feel like you found good support, and was it hard to find good support when you hired
So what's
workers,
interesting
helpers?
is the person I hired, again, I didn't know much about. I was never part of like creative writing groups. I kind of taught myself everything. I Before I hired any editors, I probably went through the manuscript. I'm no lie 10 to 15 times and edited it myself. I did kind of online editing courses way back when. Cause again, I would go 2 years not touching this, 2 years kind of going at it here and there. And this went on for almost 20 years. And, um, and so I kind of taught myself editing, but at the same time, I didn't teach myself things. So I didn't, I wish I knew a little more of what I should be looking for in the person I was choosing for a developmental edit. Because the one thing I will say is I think the person was not the greatest for my kind of genre of book, my science fantasy book. With that said, still offered fantastic notes, and I still was kind of getting the gist of what was being said. I was kind of able to take that information and say, okay, I think I know my story well enough on how to apply it to my characters, to my plot. And that's probably because I had already kind of started doing that on my own. I mean, the first draft of The Forsaken Planet was 245,000 words. The final published version is 175,000 words.
So
So, you know,
you
Jeez.
trimmed a little bit off of
yeah.
off
Now
the top there.
that's not what I gave to the developmental editor. I think I took another about 10 off, 10, 12,000 off after the developmental editor. So I took a lot off before ever even shipping it to him over the years. But yeah, I think it was worth the money just in the sense of I learned enough where now I'm at book 2, book 3, I didn't have to use one. And I think I know better now of what I'm looking for in that regard. And of course, I still use beta readers too, and those are kind of my crutch to lean on now with the latter books of my series. After The Forsaken Planet published,
Well,
as I said, I was fortunate enough to for people on book socials to enjoy it. My name started getting out there a little bit, and so now now when the fourth book is ready for beta readers, if I put it up, I'm probably gonna get. I can get probably as many. It sounds cocky. I don't want to sound cocky, but I could probably get as many as I
No,
want.
sound cocky. Promote. Yeah, there you go.
Not have to pay it, and that's so thankful for that now, and that's what I did with the last book of the series. Was It was all just people who I've connected with across book socials, and it's great.
we'll
I feel like you're
happily
definitely part
submit.
of a good community too. Like there's a ball of like indie authors that are all promoting each other and doing each other's content. I feel like you're in like that solid core group of great people just that
Yeah.
we've interacted with.
Yeah, no, I've been very fortunate to find myself kind of in that central bookstagram spot of really, there's kind of different cliques, I guess you could say, in the indie scene. And I haven't quite hit that click that's like the big names, but I'm in the clique of I think some of the names I'm very happy to be with because I think they're more when you get to the big names like that, I think some people are more might push because that's what moves the algorithm. That's what ticks the views and stuff like that. And I think I found a good group who they're just appreciative of my work. I'm appreciative of what they do. And so it's an actual friendship and not just a we're going to help each other. We, of course, all
Symbiotic
want to help each other
relationship.
grow, but
Yeah.
it's some people, I think it's a little more fake in the sense of they want to grow. So that's why they're trying to help some other people grow.
For sure.
Well, we'll definitely discreetly slide our names forward when you're ready for beta readers.
I told you, you can definitely come along. Just I know you guys have praised the pros. You got to understand the pros after the on the beta draft isn't quite as clean as the final product. So you got to take that into account if you read it. But
Absolutely. We would
'cause I have to give credit,
understand that.
I use Ed Crocker as a line editor, and he's actually a trad published author, and he's fantastic. And so he, I think, is a big part of why that prose reads so clean by the time it's gotten to you
Yeah,
guys.
it's one of the big things that stands out to us on less polished indie books is and I mean, not to be offensive, right? It's like the first thing you notice when
Yeah,
it's
no,
going into your head. If it flows in your head, then it feels smooth, and if it doesn't, then you notice.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've read them as well. I mean, obviously, coming across the indie scene, I connect with other authors. We kind of share each other's work. We read each other's work, and I've gotten the few where it's like, you know, especially when it's my friend. How do I tell him? But
It's really
Yeah,
funny.
it's
I went to this is a miniature tangent. I'll keep it short. I went to a Matt Dinneman signing for Dungeon Crawler Carl, and there was a bunch of QA, and people. Someone asked a question about like publishing a book, and he was like, um, my one piece of advice: write everything you can, write all the time. Don't publish something bad, because if you publish something bad, then they're not going to
true.
know how to break it to you that it's bad, and your name will leave a sour taste in people's mouth, and you don't want to put
Yep.
something bad. You want to polish it.
No, 100%. And I actually am very fortunate because I spent all my money on book one for that developmental editor. I actually did not use a line editor or a proofreader for the Forsaken Planet. Granted, as I told you guys, I read that thing over 20 times over the course of my life. So I felt, it's your own work. There's always going to be things you miss, but I felt as confident as I could that it was pretty clean. I mean, you guys can be the judge, I guess, but it might not be as clean as the second and third book because I did use those on those books,
Yeah, I
but
didn't
yeah,
notice a
so
quality difference between 1, 2, 3. I wasn't like, oh man, this one's so much more polished, or this one's so much less polished.
They
I
all
didn't.
transitioned really
Yeah.
well.
no one has ever said that to me. And even when I just had the first book published and got it out there, and people didn't like the story wasn't necessarily for them. The feedback was almost always, it's written very well. It's not that, it's just not a book for me, or I'm not feeling the characters, something like that. Or obviously if people like it, then they've just been like, oh, this book is great, it's written great, blah, blah, blah,
That's a
that
funny
stuff.
complaint,
So
because I felt like all the characters were really relatable. The core group of characters feels
I
very.
feel like it's one of those things where if either a story works for you or it doesn't. Like you can,
Yeah.
because if all the praise is good besides that, then you kind of know you have a good book.
I will tell you what, the one thing that absolutely was a learning curve for me in publishing was the subjective nature of readers. And just you can have someone love something and that is what they absolutely love about the book, and someone else absolutely hates it. Being a writer is 100% finding the balance of what is going to make the most people happy, because you're never going to make everyone happy.
Yeah.
And a perfect example would be the beginning of the Forsaken Planet. I have had some people who bashed the beginning and said, it took forever to take off. They should have left. Spoiler alert, they should have left Earth way before they did. And I've had the complete reverse who said, I didn't feel the beginning. They didn't feel the beginning built up the characters. They felt like we needed to know more about their lives and this and that. And so you're getting negative for both ends. And, I just, as a writer, that was something I was a little worried about going into publishing. Was I know my book really takes off when they leave Earth. I mean, at least in my opinion, that's when it does. And am I going to get the people there, or are they, am I getting them there too fast? That was something that was in my mind. So it was just really amazing to get both ends of it. Of some people thought it wasn't good for the complete opposite reasons, but I think the majority
Yeah.
of people who read it,
We
it's all
debate
about finding that balance. So I think I found that balance of being in the middle, and that's going to make hopefully most people happy.
We
if that
debate
makes
the
sense.
subjective nature of readers like all the time. It's one of our favorite things. It's not even a favorite. We just end up talking about it all the time when we're
Well, it's
reading.
hard to It's hard to like review something sometimes because you're like, am I upset with this because it isn't what I wanted, or was it because it wasn't there type thing?
No, of
Um,
course.
and I mean, I think it's very book dependent because sometimes you can clearly tell, and other times it's like, well, this might have just been not a mood read for me.
Yeah.
Which is another huge thing. A mood read is a huge thing. I could have a great book, and if I'm not ready for it, or if I'm like, I just come off my favorite series ever, and now I'm trying this new thing, and it wasn't what I just had, then I'm not gonna jive with it.
No, that's a huge part. I mean, I said to you guys how The Hobbit changed my life. Something kept but
Hmm.
I haven't read it since I read it again, I wanna say at, like, 16, something like that, but I haven't read it since then. If I read it now, it might not hit with me as well as it did back then, you know, and that's a big part of all of our reading experiences is it just hitting you at that right time? But it's also about life experiences and stuff, you know, my book, you kinda have to be I think to really get into the characters, you gotta kinda be someone who I don't wanna say you had a big group of friends, but you had a group of friends that kind of felt like family to you, you know? That's a big part of my story, and so I think if you can relate to that, you're gonna relate to my story, and it just might be you know, I remember it was a booktuber who had said to me, "Very well written, I'm they're just not connecting with the character," but, you know, that might not have been that person's growing up. Maybe they were kind of, you know, solitary most of their, you know, growing up, stuff like that, and that's fine. It was the biggest learning curve of getting used to when I first published, it really hurt getting those negative things because you just really doubt yourself when you're not getting the positive feedback. But then once I just really, really, truly understood that subjective nature of reading, that kind of made the whole thing a lot easier for me because I said, you know what? I just realized now you're going to get bad. The more your story gets out there, you're going to eventually get someone who does not like it, plain and simple. And that kind of actually, when you realize that and truly accept it, it almost makes writing and publishing 10 times easier.
So that was something I was going to ask is how, like, as an author, you deal with criticism because that can be super difficult depending on the type of person you are. But then you put something you love out there and someone's like, this is garbage. I hate it. It's like, but why? But I'll shift to, so like, do you ever go on like Goodreads or something like that and look at your reviews? Or is that like a no zone? I'm not looking at that. That's for somebody else.
I used to go my first year of being published, I was probably on Goodreads every single day. You just can't help but be, right? You're curious, you
Yeah.
know, especially me. I sat on my story for 20 years and I was not, as I said, I was not part of like writing groups. I didn't show my work to really my wife was like one of like three people who saw my work in like my close circle. So I really did not know what strangers were gonna think of my story. And so when Goodreads was the outlet and, you know, it that is what I mean when I say it was a learning curve because
Mm,
even some of the good reviews I got, you could just tell certain aspects this person didn't like, that person didn't like. So it's like you're living on cloud nine when you get a fantastic one, and you're in the complete dumps, questioning should I even be wasting my time doing this anymore? When you're on the you know when you get a negative one, and I wasn't very popular then, so I'm only getting the first year. I want to say, I think I broke 50 the first year. Not reviews, that's ratings. So I probably had like 30 reviews, something like that. And so it's not a lot of material to work with. You know, that it was
hmm
that's what I mean when I say as I got further along and as I started getting more and more reviews, I started seeing a higher sample size that yes, reading those reviews might have started to paint a picture of, you know what, I can do better in these areas. And that I can only do that though when I was able to accept that whole subjective nature thing I talked to you of. This isn't personal. It's not. I have enough people now who like it that I know I am at least a decent writer, and so I should keep going forward with it. And once I accepted that, I think I was able to more so pick through my reviews. I don't go on them as much at all anymore. I check Amazon a good amount just because it helps me understand my ads and it helps me understand how much my book's being read on there. But Goodreads I check once in a blue moon.
okay. That makes sense.
I had a question when you were telling us about we were talking about mood reads and subjective readers, and I don't know, remember what you said that triggered it for me. But who in the book reflects someone in real life? And so, multifaceted question: Who do you see yourself in the most in the book, as well as who else in the book reflects people around you?
Well, I would say for myself, I definitely wrote Colton after myself. Just it being my first book I think most people probably write their first book as the main character after, and it's not that I'm exactly like him, but I would just say I'm definitely the most like him. Try to do well, but do stupid shit at times. Stubborn, hard headed, that type of stuff. But it goes in line with the rest of the main friend group is basically written after my friend group. Now, I shouldn't say it's not like each person is like someone because that's not the case at all. I have, it's four of them that are kind of it's six of them at the beginning. That's kind of the core group. But mine's even bigger than that, the one I grew up with. But I took a little bit of this person, a little bit of that person, a little bit of myself is probably thrown into all of the characters and but I formed that group off the notion. Again, I started writing this in my late teens, early 20s. So that's kind of your peak time of being with your boys, being with your bros, and
Hmm.
so I kind of modeled the whole thing off of if this situation occurred when me and my friends were that age, this is kind of how I just envisioned this all would have went down.
Earlier, you had mentioned you had cut like 100,000 something words, right? Is there anything that you cut either from the first book or from two or three that you're like, I kind of wish that was still in there, or that might, you don't have to tell us what it is, but okay, I'm actually going to use that later on.
So not anything to use later on, but honestly, my second and third books did not get too much cut off of them. Those stories were pretty much the first draft was what the story was. However, beta readers did, this scene might need a little more, that scene might need, or maybe add this small scene just to better explain this, blah, blah, blah. Scenes did get added, but there wasn't really much cuts from the later books. But yeah, there's one scene, I still have it somewhere, I think, from book one, where it was before the second simulation, and they fight the creatures called Krugels in the second sim. And before that, they have a class, and the class basically shows them a past battle that was a true battle against Krugels. And my mind when I was writing it was, oh, this is going to get people hyped up for when Colton goes against them. But it was just a really cool battle scene on one of the other planets. It was on Zadella, so it kind of really gave you the landscape of that planet. And yeah, it showed kind of how the army fights. It was like a drop ship scene of them kind of flying in and running out into the field of battle. And I was always proud of that scene because I take pride in my fight scenes. And I thought that was like a really, really cool one. And I really wanted to put it in the book. But, towards the end, I just kind of realized, I think this was when I was working with the developmental, and I was like, it's already enough training for book one. So we don't need more training. So that was a big part of the cutting down, was cutting down the things I think I wrote just because I thought they were cool, but they weren't necessarily needed for the plot of the book. That's always one though I'm still hanging on. I always say I got to put it out in my newsletter one of these days because it's just a fun scene
No, that'd be
to
cool.
watch.
That would be cool. Interesting. What do you got, Dakota?
Yeah, I had a question and then I forgot the question, but I'll pick a question. Oh, I had it when you were talking. Yes, I remembered it. When you write, how do you outline, or do you not outline? Do you have it all in your head? Is it all on paper? Are you a pantser? Do you just kind of write and see where the pen takes you or the keyboard takes you?
I am a heavy, heavy plotter. So I'm currently writing book 4, and I want to say the outline for it is about 32 Microsoft Word pages right now. Yeah, it's 12 to 15,000 words, something like that. So that's just how I do things. Granted, I want to say I finished probably my mid 20s. I finished the first draft of The Forsaken Planet, didn't publish it for like another 12, 13 years, something like that. And in that time frame, I did not write down the ideas I had for book 2 and book 3. But I think part of why book 2 and 3 came so naturally to me was because a lot of the big scenes in those books were in my head for so many years. And those I did remember. Um, but once I actually published, now I have so many files and documents keeping track of so many different things with this series. And, I started keeping a note, like a notebook thing on my phone, just a million. This will be book 4. This will be book 5. This will be blah blah blah. So now just when I sit down, I know before I write scene 1, because I don't know if you guys realize there's a lot of things in my book that are kind of foreshadowing. There's a reason something might happen in chapter 1, might not be till the end of the book. So I I know exactly where I'm going, and I don't write out of order at all. I write from that prologue straight through to the end because I feel like that I don't know, that's just my preference of writing. I know a lot of people kind of will like if they have different POVs, they'll write those POVs through, but I feel like that helps me just get that flow down right from the start, writing in chronological order.
With all that plotting and stuff that you do, has there been anything that you've like significantly like researched or had to be like, I want to write this, but I'm not exactly sure how it works or how to do it. So then you spend like 10 hours on Google, like, how does this happen?
I wouldn't say 10 out anything was 10 hours. I mean, the one fortunate thing and kind of deliberate that I've done with my series is I've made all the technology kind of based around my magic system. So that allows me a
Convenient.
lot of easy room to navigate certain things. But I have had to look, I've had to look up, how how fire is in space, how spaceships are, how stuff can turn, what it would sound like within a ship and all this stuff like that. I've researched. I've researched a lot. The research for book two, a lot about Indonesia. What was kind of true common animals there, common towns, common U.S. military's presence. All small stuff like that. I've had a million things. I've had the Navy SEALs. I had to research a little bit into before writing, and I still botch things because I actually, for whatever reason, people from the military are drawn to my book, and people that were actually in the military, and like I had one woman who I guess was a Navy SEAL on TikTok was like, I think it's one of the things where I have him go like "hooah," and she like messaged me. She's like, "For the record, we don't go hooah. We go like that's some other branch of the military's thing." And she was like, "That's actually an insult to us." And I was like, "Oh no."
What have I done?
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
like, you
stuff
messed
like
it up.
that. But it's cool. Like she didn't mean it like that whatsoever. She just was like, "I'm just
Yeah.
telling you, it doesn't bother me at all." But I just, in case you want to know, and I had another guy who he actually works for like the Space Force now. I forget what he was in, but same thing. He told me something about the fighter jets or something when he was reading book two. He was messaging me about that. So it's the little things like that that I have to research. But luckily, I've made it so I don't have to go too in depth. There's never been anything in my books where it's like I need to study 10 hours for this and
Yeah.
make sure I get it right. And I
Well, because
kind
you
of
had said
deliberately do it like that just because I don't have the time to do that.
Yeah.
If I'm ever a full time author one day, maybe I will write a frickin' Andy Weir story, something like that, where I got to know the science really well. But not for this series.
'cause I know you had said too when we were chatting on Instagram that a lot of your names and everything have whether mythological or not type meaning and things. 'Cause I had asked you about Bintang.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually when I wrote the book, I said Bintang like you do. Apparently, the correct pronounce is Bintang. So
Oh, I didn't even know.
I just narrated the book, and it was actually, or I didn't narrate it. My narrator, we actually were wrapping up book two, and he was the one. He's like, so just he researches everything before, and he was like, just for the record, I researched this, and I'm pretty sure it's Bintang. And I was like, so I started researching it, and that's I think just from trying to Google and doing a little stuff online, that's how it is. But that's the funny because I said it exactly like you when I'm writing the book, I'm saying Bintang, Bintang, Bintang.
Well, I was for sure that because I had been to Bali, so I was definitely that classic white guy that was like, "1 Bintang, please," because it's their most popular beer over there. So they're probably just like this idiot.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, no, that's something I have a lot of fun with my series is I link it's something that's always been an interest of mine is kind of the mysteries of the past, things we don't know about on Earth. Like we have these pyramids, we have these temples, and we're guessing basically of what their use was, why they're there. And so I had a lot of fun of kind of linking that to my story, the old world, the old universe in my story that used to be connected to us. And so I did. The prophets, a lot of their last names might have something that's true names to if you research it, you'll see it's like a name for Earth, name that was used in a past culture that may be gone or something like that. I like throwing like Latin words in there sometimes and just stuff that's kind of old school Earth because I feel like it would make sense to it's like a connection to even the old school spacelings that history that they don't even know about.
mhm.
And I definitely like obviously, the whole story kind of centers around the universe, solar system, stars, this connection to all of this. So I definitely have fun too of kind of making the character names connect to kind of astrological things like that as well.
Yeah, it works. It's cool. It all works out.
Yeah,
It all makes
thank you.
sense when reading it. It doesn't, it's very
Yeah,
interesting.
no, I
It
mean,
all
I
flows.
wrote it, and I always said I want to kind of a big influence of writing for me was I just loved Harry Potter so much when I was young, and I always felt like one thing that was so great about that series was when I was reading it, I always said, "Why not? Who am I to say this isn't actually happening?" You know, like it's just a cool story. I liked how it was ingrained in with our world, so I knew going into writing my own that was definitely I wanted that to be a big part of it. That it starts basically our world and evolves into the more because I wanted people to read it and say the same thing. Maybe go, huh, that's kind of cool. Who am I to say that's not what's going on out there? You know?
Where did where'd you get the idea for the power from, for wielding and for how everything would work? Like, was it a specific thing that you were like, this is what it feels like, this is in my head, or is it just
I think it's just a blend of some of the kind of magic systems I loved growing up. You know, I said before, Wheel of Time was my favorite book series. I really I haven't read it in so long, so I might botch this. Sidar and Sidon, is that the
I
magic?
have not read it
we
yet.
haven't either? I think we're
What?
gonna read it this
It's
year.
on our list.
We're
It's on our list for this
yeah.
year.
I know it's I know
It's a
looking at it from
commitment.
the outside, 14 books is probably a little intense, but it's by far my favorite series. Now, granted, if I read it now, I don't know if I would say that. Just at the time when I read it, I think I read it in my early 20s. I just absolutely loved it. But the magic system in that definitely heavily influences mine. Also, a little bit, I would say, the Force from Star Wars. I've kind of always said my magic system, and I remember it was kind of a thing in my head when I wrote it. Was just I was like, how cool would the Force be if everyone had it? Like, and so that
It
kind
kind
of
of
just
it kind of feels like a more tangible force to me when I'm like seeing it in my head, like the force
yeah,
given
no,
like more physical
it's
form.
yeah, no, and it's supposed to almost be that way. Trying to think of what book. There's another one where I remember the magic system was very similar, where it was like you just have to envision it, and that's how you make it work. I'm blanking on the book right now, but there was another one where it kind of was, like I said, it was a blend of all these books like this that I just kind of put it all together into its own thing. I hope it's its own thing at least.
Well, we would say it, we wouldn't say it rudely, but we'd probably be like, I see a lot of this here, so it stands as its own thing pretty strongly.
Yeah, and I think the way I definitely tried to make it unique in the way that I blended it with the technology of the worlds, and the weapons, the weapon creation, how you mix it with that. I tried to throw ways in there where it was a little different from things I had seen in the past, and that was my way of doing it.
It still feels very unique.
How intentional. I don't know I don't know what kind of question I'm trying to ask here. How hard was it / how intentional was it to do your like themes and your like the thematic flow through it? Because like I feel like throughout the first 3 books, there's this really big focus on different parts of human nature. At least that's something that I talk about when we rated it, is that you see this whole like, we're better than you because we all have power, and then it's like, but really we're not. We fail just as much as regular humans because we're regular humans.
Yeah, I mean that I don't. My main goal in writing is I want my books to be kind of a getaway. I want them to be an escape for people. And I'm not one who likes heavy like political pushes in any of my stuff, books, movies, any of that. Politics wise, I kind of sit in the middle, and it just it's just especially in today's world, it's so mind numbing to me sometimes, just the arguments on all sides around all things. Not that they're not serious and not that there's not valid points around a lot of that, but it's just I'm trying to get away from some of that. I feel like we face it in our everyday life every day. So for me, reading is the kind of get away from it. And so I did not want that obviously I still put a little bit of my political leanings in the story. I try not to be overbearing with it. But yeah, so I didn't want that to be I want everyone, every creed, every color, every gender, everything to be able to like my story, hopefully, every political affiliation, all that. So that
Yeah, I wasn't
wasn't
saying it as a negative thing. I think that was one of the
no,
things I
no,
said in our.
I didn't think you are. It's basically that was me leading into saying, so I try not to have like these heavier themes that kind of match the real world, but I do want the overall main theme of what I feel like I see from the world is just, just humanity is its own worst enemy, I guess you could say. It was very important for me in book 1 to show kind of the bigotry and stuff like that, just because I wanted the reader to realize they're just like us. You know, they may be more technologically advanced, they may have this power. Humans are still humans though. And nothing is they haven't gone through this psychological epiphany that's allowed them, or philosophical epiphany that's made them more evolved or something like that, where they don't do these things. They are still just like that. And it's definitely the theme that is the overall main theme of the series, of just we're going to either keep going in these circles like this and eventually destroy ourselves, or we almost do need to evolve in a way and kind of reach that next step, or I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to tear
Yeah,
ourselves down.
that's a big
So
theme in the third book too. Is that like we have to be better. We have to do things differently. We can't just
yeah,
kill
and it's
everybody the way that they're
Especially at the
killing
end
everybody.
with
Yeah.
and
yeah.
that's it, and it's important for me to show how easy it. I mean, we see it from Colton's point of view, right? How easy it is for that to turn. Something I really want to try and hammer home with my books is kind of how the collective whole. I mean, I think I grew up thinking there's right and wrong, and it's black and white, and as I've gotten older, I've realized that is not the case. I remember growing up and saying, "Oh, how could Nazi Germany? How could they really make a whole country of people think a certain type of people are these terrible things that they can do these awful things to?" And I understand it a little bit now, in the sense of just the things I've seen from the world, and just how collective wholes can shift from one. I mean, I think you guys have probably seen things that were abnormal 10 years ago are now completely normalized on social media or on the media or other
Hmm.
things. And it's like, and I believe we're almost like, I believe the things I write, we're connected. The human race is all connected. And I think those thoughts, you get deja vu, or you get, I'm married. Sometimes I'm looking at my wife and it's like, we talk and we're just thinking the same exact thing, like I really feel like there's like frequencies. I don't know if it's radio waves, I don't know what it is, but there's something out there that kind of, we're more like insects in the way of like we're connected like that than I think we realize. And so it was just important for me to put that in my story. And how that can turn all of humanity on a dime like that can these we if a world war happens tomorrow, it's not just affecting the people who die in that war. It's you're truly affecting someone's soul and the rest of their life and the people they go home to, and how it's like a corrosion that just builds and builds and builds. And so it was important for me to try and put all that into a terms of like evolving and like kind of hitting a new step, hitting a new barrier. I guess you will. It's hard. I'm trying to talk about this without. I'm writing book 4 right now, and book 4 is going to open up much more on the mythology and stuff like
Well,
that.
that segues into a fun question: is can you give, if you're going to say 3 words either about or from book 4 with no context, what would they be? Just any
Keywords.
3 words.
I
Harry
saw this
Potter
This was like
fanfic.
the one question that I saw, and I was like, okay, I can't. The rest I was like, yeah, I'll be able to come up with an answer for that. This one I was blanking a little, but I
Well, while
actually
you're
have a good
thinking,
one.
you're
I'm going to use 4 words. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine.
it's
So
allowed.
I actually just wrote this in the manuscript today, but I took it out. But I think it's perfect for what say. I would just say the line that I had written and took out was "The end is nigh," and so I'll leave you with that
To ruminate on.
All right.
to pump you
Well,
up.
now I just wanna cut the interview so you can go back to writing, so that way we get this book. Because I'm like,
I ain't writing tonight.
I'm ready to jump back
I was
in.
up at 5 this morning writing, so I'm not doing tonight's going to be my
Oh,
bed
I don't
after
blame you.
this.
I don't blame you. Is that your normal like schedule? Then you're like up at 5, write, and then start the day at when
So
the kids wake up.
I can't book 1 I can't go by. It was here, there, all over the place for years and years. Book 2, as I said, my business was slow. So book 2, I was more part-time, my other business, almost full-time writing. I cranked out that manuscript in a month and a half, I think it might have been. Maybe it was 2 months,
Dang.
the first manuscript. Book 3 was similar. I was a little busier, but I cranked out that manuscript in like 3 months. But now I'm kind of finding a new normal as I've gotten busy again. And yeah, it's kind of this morning I woke up at 5. I wrote for about an hour and a half, got my kids ready, brought them to school, went to work, started doing some work. I I work for myself, so I'm fortunate enough if time opens up in the day, I finished a little early on the job today, so went home. I spent about another 2 hours writing. That's been a little harder to come by the last 6 months, I want to say, of 2025. I only wrote about probably 15,000 words. Granted, after The Dark Element published, I made a point to myself that I was going to focus a little more on marketing last year
Mm.
and content creation and that stuff, just because I wrote these books, but I got to find readers for them now. So that it was a heavy focus of doing that, but I also was doing the audiobooks, which I'm not narrating them myself, but the editing of the narration requires sitting down and reading through the book as I'm listening to it. And the first one was 18 and a half hours, I think, or about 18 hours. The second one we're just wrapping up. It's going to be 15 hours. And so, that's time consuming as well because I'm sitting there, I'm reading it. Anything that's got to be edited, I got to stop, I got to go to the file, write down, so
Do you
it's
listen when you're reviewing? Do you listen to the audiobook on one speed, or do you 1.25 or like?
no, when I'm reviewing, I got to do what. So when I listen, I'm not a huge audiobook listener, but when I listen, I do 1.3 just as my
Me too.
normal listen.
Yeah, us too.
But when I'm doing the audiobook, I got to do 1.0 just because I'm afraid I'm too much of a perfectionist, so I'm afraid I'm going to miss something. So that's why.
Yeah, I feel like one of the other things you said, that as a dad, the only like sacred free time I can find is when the kids are sleeping. So early morning or late at night, and I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
you
unfortunate.
know, I books 2 and 3, I worked a lot of late nights on the books, especially the editing phases and stuff like that. But it's really it's whatever the mood is. Like lately, for whatever, like back then, for whatever reason, I was fine pushing into the night. It wasn't bothering me too much. I was making it work. And now, I don't know, something about this past year has just been, and it seems like everyone I talked to has felt the same. It's just been life has been chaos lately, and it's been busy, busy, busy. And I'm drained. I'm done at the end of the night. So I've found more enjoyment recently waking up, going to bed earlier, and waking up a little earlier, and writing that way.
Yeah, that takes up a lot of your time, especially with having to do the audiobooks and at that speed and
Yeah,
going back over and
that
back
sounds really
over and back
time-consuming.
over. With all that being time consuming and also having a life and a job and everything, do you still find any time to read, or is it reading yourself besides reading your own stuff? That doesn't count.
So, I mean, really, I think I read 3 books in 2025, I wanna say, but no, I mean, that's something that has definitely taken a hit since I've published and since I've put more of my time towards writing. Again, trying to push more on the marketing end in 2025 and the audiobooks, that took up a lot of time. Entering 2026, I'm trying to give a little more to not just writing, but also reading because, A, reading keeps my brain fresh, keeps my writer brain fresh, and, uh and B, it's just my enjoyment. I feel like it kinda eases my stress and my mind, and as I said earlier, helps me escape things for a little bit. So, I'm definitely I've been listening to Z.S. Diamani's the 3rd book in his trilogy. I think it's Stone and Ruin is the book.
Oh,
When I'm on audio,
mhm.
I'm never looking at the cover like I would a paperback, so I'm
Yeah.
forgetting the title. But I'm having a lot of fun with that. I got about 3 hours left of that one. I've been given a little more time to than I had at the back end of the year last year, and yeah, I've written just this week. I wrote 5,000 words, which is nice because, like I said, I think I wrote 15,000 words the whole back half of 2025. So I feel like I'm finally getting a little bit back into the
Back
groove
in
of.
the groove.
2026 is off to a good start.
Yeah. I mean, it isn't and isn't. That's a good start, but at the same time, when I was writing books 2 and 3, I was pumping out 7,500 words a day. So
Yeah.
it's but we'll get there.
Life's
We're
changed a
getting
little
back
bit.
into the swing of things. But it's
Gotta
it's
start
okay
somewhere.
because now that I got 3 of them out, I feel a little less pressure of that old school pressure of, "Oh, you gotta." Indie world really feels like you gotta drop a book a year, a book a year, a book a year, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. Now that I got 3 out, I think I got a relatively decent backlog to keep any new readers occupied for some time till I get the next one out there.
Do you feel it's nicer now that you have that foundation too? It's like, all right, I have 3 books that I'm like, if your series is a pyramid, you've already got, this part left. So you got only this part left. Like,
Oh,
is it easier having that, or is it harder? Because now it's like, all right, I have to remember all the things that I did. And this person said, and this person's here.
it's it's definitely it's definitely harder. It's easier in the sense of the things I just talked about. It's so important as an indie author to have a backlog and to have just more proof that because a lot of indie authors, first off, like 1% of writers actually go ahead and publish their book. And then I think it's like only 10% of those writers even go on and write the second book. So, I think people are very hesitant of jumping on an indie author who may only have one book out there. So it's definitely the backlog, I think, proves to people I'm here to at least finish this series. I'm not going to, it'll get done. I can't promise when it's going to be, but I'm going to get the series done. I think that helps. In terms of what you just said, it makes it a lot harder because even like, especially the early segments of the book where I'm playing kind of catch up, I'm recapping things, trying to naturally recap it within my text. It's a lot of going back. I'm spending a lot of time going back and looking at this, looking at that, and just it's not even. I guess I can't even say it is just the beginning because there's so many things now that I've created, so many weaponry, so many vehicles, I said weapons, but just magic use of of Solera and all that stuff that it's like now when I write about any of that, I have to go back and make sure I'm staying true and someone's not going to be like, wait a second,
In the first book, you did this, and now
this was triangular. Why is it rectangular? Little silly things like that. So, he had brown eyes in the last book. Why does he have black eyes now? That type of stuff.
It's funny to
That's
hear
like,
authors.
well, Celeria changes your eye color. I just said that now, so my bad.
I actually just explained. I wrote the scene today of how Darius's eyes were turned black.
Oh,
Okay.
that's exciting.
Yeah.
Do you know what the next novella would be about? What you want to talk about?
If I write it, it's going to be the backstory of the Heart of the Flame.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
So
If
I write it, I'm not 100%. I'm going to write it. But I have a lot of good ideas for that. And I feel like it would be very cool, especially book 4 is going to give a lot of answers to, well, I shouldn't say this yet. I haven't written it yet, but my hope is book 4 is going to give a lot of answers to the concealers and stuff like that. So I feel like it would be the perfect time to transition to his backstory of meeting them and how they have kind of grown together, that trio, to the point that we saw at the start of book 1. So we'll see. I'm not 100% again, and I'm going to do it just because my novella never sells. It's like, so I feel like if I do it, I'm just doing it just to do it. And
Just for fun at that
we
point.
would appreciate it.
Yeah, no, well, the fans of my story will appreciate it. So that would be one reason why
the people would love it.
Because there's a lot of people who love him as a character, so they want to know more about him.
Everybody loves a good villain.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to have a villain in their life, but they want to read about it.
Yeah, well, I think I've been excited about where Darius is going. I know a few people have reached out to me, and they seem to like his progression in book 3, and he stays a mainstay from here on out. So I'm excited about where he's
I
going.
really enjoyed getting to have his point of view at book 3.
It was nice. He got more like humanized a bit. So like I really enjoyed his character when we had that duel.
I love it when authors do that to me, when they make you like someone you're supposed to dislike. It's like, dang it, now I like this person.
Yeah,
I
was supposed to do this to me.
I was definitely hoping with that duel, readers go into that kind of, who do you want to win? You don't really want anyone to win, right?
Like him.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely my hope with it. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. It was one of my favorite scenes I've probably written to date.
So once
I know it was the hope that people are going to go into that and be like, oh, I don't know who I want to win. But at the same time, when the outcome happens, I think you're also like, oh, this bastard, just the way he's treating it at the end, just like, God damn it, I wish it was him. So
we'll get like a what if series on if he lost or something, and you're
there you go.
This was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, you almost go into it, I think, knowing what the outcome has to be, and you're like, oh, but what if it wasn't?
But baby.
What if it was different?
Yeah, yep.
What if he mortally wounds him on the way out? What if there's a purpose?
Yep.
I'm hoping, and you don't have to say, but I hope we get like a brother duel type thing. Obviously, you don't have to say anything. We're not asking for spoilers, but I'm hoping as a reader that we get some sort of epic duel.
I have ideas in my head. I have my hopes that I want, but I'm very, very cognizant of the fact of I got to think about how I want to do that though, because I don't want to have like another Game of Thrones, the Mountain versus the Hound versus
Hound
brother. I don't want it to like reflect that sort of thing either. So there's been quite a few of those in books, so I definitely want it to come off bit different from things we've seen, but I got my ideas in my head of how that's all gonna play. I was
Well,
actually, right in the Dara scene today was a lot of fun because I got in a little bit to the backstory of Raylan, Willick's wife, and that whole thing that it touches on in book one that I didn't really get to touch on. It just didn't feel like it fit in any segments of the last one. So yeah, I've been Darius is probably one of my new favorite characters to be writing about.
Well,
very
now I'm
cool. We're
excited.
excited to read about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm even more excited. I'm like, oh man, how I'm gonna have to wait. I'm gonna have to wait forever.
Well, you
It's
won't
not,
have
it's
to
not
wait
gonna be
forever.
forever.
Right.
I'm
At
hoping
least he's not
if I
George R.
can
R.
get
Martin.
my goal is to try and finish the manuscript March or April. If I can do that, that's going to be a tall task. If I can do that, I'll probably have betas ready to go out by the summer sometime. So it might not be too much of a wait, but we'll see. I mean, maybe I'll surprise myself and I'll bang this stuff out quicker. I did that with books 2 and 3, so we will see.
You just gotta find that groove where all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, it's been the whole day, and I hope everybody, my kids and wife, are okay because I haven't left this spot.
Not as much about finding a groove as much as okay, I don't need a birthday party to bring my kids to here, or a sporting event
Oh
there, all
yeah.
that good stuff.
Life happening in between.
Yeah, that's the toughest part is just having the young kids. If my kids were 5 years older, I think I would have 10 times more time on my hand, but
Yeah,
at the
that's why I
same
was hopping on late, was getting the oldest back from jujitsu.
but you got to enjoy these years. It's how many people have always told me, listen, they want to hug you now. They're not going to want to in 5 years. So enjoy it, be with them, all that stuff. And I definitely don't want to waste that time. So, book might just have to wait a couple more months for that.
Understandable for sure.
Seems like a good reason.
How dare you care about your family and your so I guess once you finish Power of the Stars, then is there a series afterwards? I know this is way ahead of time and this is way forward think, but is there something else in your head where you're like, be cool if I could get this on paper, but even if it doesn't happen, you're like, I would love to write a Harry Potter fanfic or something, just something ridiculous or
Believe it or not, it's probably 90% of the other authors I've connected with and talked to. They say their biggest problem is they're writing one series and they get 20 other ideas in their heads. That has never been a problem for me. Don't get me wrong. I have other ideas. I actually have like 40,000 words down of like a dystopian book I started, I don't know, 10 years ago, something like that. I have other notes of other things, but I don't know. My mind has always just been driven towards Power of the Stars. And I think especially when I published, I just said I'm not focusing on any. If I did this full time, maybe I would be thinking more towards other things. But because I know my time is so limited in terms of writing and what I could put towards it, and I really, really want to have the series done because just from what I've learned since publishing, it's a huge boon to have a completed series. As some people will not touch a book until they know the series is completed.
Mhm.
I don't think that's necessarily a thing so much maybe in like the book socials space that we all connected in, but that is very much the space. I do ads and stuff, and I literally get people asking, "Is the series done?" And I'll be like, "No, a couple more books, blah blah blah," and they'll just be like, "Oh, I'll put it on my TBR. I'll get to it when it's finished." Like they just go right out there and say it, and I don't know why that is. I guess people want to just be able to binge through it. They don't want to have to. They don't like waiting. Um, but anyway, that is why it's very much a goal of mine to finish this series. Afterwards, I would love to get back to that dystopian one. I think it's a really, really cool idea that I have for that one. But I get people, oh, there better be an Ace and Morris book all on their own after this series is over. And I'm like, well, you don't even know if Ace and Morris are both going to survive this series. So put the
Dang.
hit the brakes there. But no, something like that, that might be what I want to, a spinoff or something like that might be what I want to do. I don't know. We'll see. That I
It's
won't
hard
know
when
till the time comes.
you've been writing it for so long. You're like, I fell in love with this story. I'm not ready to leave it, type thing. But you can tell you're focused on it, like in the writing. I mean, like the passion's there and stuff. So it's one of those things where you want an author to write other things. You're like, I really like your writing. Give me more. But also, it's like, keep doing what you're doing and take your time because I want more of what you got right here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, it'll definitely be bittersweet when I'm done with the Power of the Stars universe, just because it's been a 20+ year journey for me with this story and with these characters, and so it's going to be wild to think when it's over. But at the same time, I'm excited for that because I do think I've been growing as an author as the books have gone on, and so I'm just excited to see what I could do with with other differing things as well.
Yeah.
I've been predominantly an epic fantasy reader in my life, so I do some point in time want to write a true straight epic fantasy book. So we'll see what happens.
It's funny. Christopher Rocchio is kind of taking that same path where he wrote a big space opera and now he's going into epic fantasy.
That's I mean,
Two
if
of
you
the
can do
greats.
it
We
like
got
that.
Christopher Rocchio and Bryan Wilson here.
I have not read Sun Eater. I've had a lot of people who told me I should, though. They said there's similarities. I don't know how much that's necessarily true. I do know
It's not.
I am not. Huh?
It's not.
It's not.
I mean,
Okay.
you could say
I haven't read it
similarities with
yet.
anything that's like a space opera, but I don't think
Yeah.
it's any like, I wouldn't say that anything is like, these points are
Yeah.
really similar.
And I've never gotten the impression, because his seems definitely like a straight, more kind of old school space opera, different
Yeah.
alien races, stuff like that. And I'm not a huge. Probably the reason I haven't dove into his books is I'm not a huge like flowery prose person, and I do know I heard his books are very much like that. So that's probably something that's held me back. I think I was a little more enjoyed reading stuff like that when I was younger, but now as the time becomes less and less in life, I don't think I have the patience for some of that stuff right now. But that may change, and I'll
Yeah.
definitely get to it. And hey, if you can make your name huge in that sense, doing sci-fi, he's just going to blow up more jumping into fantasy because we all
Oh,
know how
yeah.
many more fantasy readers there are in comparison to at least across book socials. It's actually funny. It's a little bit different doing the ads and being on like Facebook ads and stuff like that. It's a huge sci-fi crowd there. Actually, that's been probably my best success of getting my book out there. But I do think like Book Talk, Bookstagram, all that. It's a huge gap between fantasy and sci-fi readers.
Which is very,
Sci-fi does seem to be the niche for some reason. Like everyone's like, I need the fantasy. Well, I feel like we had, and this may or may not be true, so I might be speaking out my ass here, but I feel like we have more, like women reading fantasy and writing fantasies, and then we had that whole like fae phase that's been happening. So I think a lot more that's driving a lot more people.
You had the romantasy blow up, which
Mhm.
has kind of been like a segue for some, like you said, some women who were maybe romance readers, read those, loved those, and that has now had them a little more curious, probably about regular fantasy books. I think that is what has helped grow the fantasy genre back up over the past. There's also pop culture, obviously, all the great fantasy shows that have come out, and but I do think sci-fi is a little bit back on the rise. I'm an Apple TV guy. They got a lot of great sci-fi shows over on there. So I'm hoping that I feel like Red Rising and Sun Eater has helped a little bit to get sci-fi back. And so I think you got people who've been really liking those series who are kind of craving a little more like it. And I think my series it may not be like Sun Eater exactly, but I think it kind of fits that mold of fitting that sci-fi science fantasy kind of feel that can maybe scratch that itch for some people.
It's very interesting to me because my like favorite types of books have always been like both sci-fi and fantasy, and I've always took a approach to like what genre I want to read as like, was it sci-fi or fantasy? Because I'll probably like it. And so seeing this whole gap of like, I'm like really into fantasy, not so much into sci-fi is like weird to me because I'm like, why? It's like
it's
fantasy,
the same for
but
me.
not on Earth.
It's the same for me because I said I
me
read
both.
The Hobbit when I was 12. I read Ender's Game when I was 15. I want to
Ender's
say
Game is like, that's like my favorite book in high school.
Yeah, same with me. I mean, it was the same reaction as when I read The Hobbit in middle school. Same reaction in high school. I read Ender's Game and I did the same thing. I read the book in the freaking weekend. And Ender's Game is actually you probably could tell, huge influence on the Forsaken Planet.
You can see that with the simulations.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was
everything.
just gonna say. That was one of the questions we had written down.
Oh yeah, the simulations were modeled very heavily after kind of Ender's Game. They're very different in ways, obviously.
Right.
Really, the fantasy aspect I add to it is what makes them different. But they were modeled very much. I wanted to capture that similar type feel.
So when your series gets picked up by Apple TV, are you going to be doing a move? Would you rather it be like a movie per book, or would you do, how they're doing the like 10 episodes per book type thing, like, with Percy Jackson and different
Yeah.
those type of thing. If you had a preference, if they're like, we'll do whatever you want, just do it now. How do you want your show to be? Do you want animated? Do you want a live action? Like, how do you want this to look?
No, I think it'd be good both ways, probably live action or animated. I think I think I'd want it live action just because I'm not a big animation guy. Granted, I love like Invincible is one of my favorite shows, so I do love some animation stuff. But but yeah, I think I'd want live action. I'd probably want a TV show. I think the world I built is just too big to capture. I think a lot of things would get lost. Well, I don't know. They'd work as both. I think, but I'd I think it would be better as a TV show because you'd be able to get into the little gritty details a little bit more
Little
there.
nuances and everything
Yeah,
show better. Yeah.
yeah.
Very
It'd
cool.
be. I don't know how like book one would be a movie because it would just be The Sims would just take up the entire movie. So yeah, but it'd be different writing. They'd probably take a few out of them. We'll see.
Yeah, you know how they change everything. They're like, this is nothing like the book that I just read.
Yeah, they're like,
I
you know how we
actually
have.
I want to get your guys' take. I had two beta readers on book one who said I should have eliminated the second or third sim from the story.
No.
I no,
Thoughts?
I didn't think it was too much. I didn't think it was. I
I
didn't think
feel
it
like they
dragged
were
on.
necessary, like, too, for like the character development because everybody's growing together and working together like like a literal unit. So
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
I felt like they were necessary. And
and
also I
even
wanted them.
even so far as like Red Rising, like we spent all of Red Rising in like Academy in the like.
Oh yeah,
The book was a
my
sim.
my series is definitely modeled. It was always planned like this before I even read Red Rising, but it definitely helped. I I had wrote the full first draft of the Forsaken Planet before I ever read Red Rising, and then I read Red Rising before ever starting book two, and it definitely modeled in a way that sense of because I think one of my favorite parts of Golden Sun was like we're finally seeing what the actual universe is like, and we're diving headfirst into it, and I very much wanted that for my second book because I know my first book is a heavy training book, and I know people are probably itching to finally get these characters out into the world, and
Yeah, I feel like it's a
so
good distinction. I like the way that in book one we're more like introspectively focused on the characters and their growth and they're getting used to this crazy new world around them, and then it's like, all right, now that we've built this foundation, into the rest of the universe we go.
I
yeah,
don't know why people don't like that though. I love like if you give me a whole book of like this is how we're learning our like Harry Potter book one, like oh we're getting our wands and we're figuring out the early spells and stuff. People are like oh it's so boring. They're just like learning how to do it. I want people to blow up and they are already at their main arc. I'm like I love the
I
beginning of that. I want to see things progress. I don't want it to be oh we're here and boom.
I'm the same exact way. I can't stand stories where it's like the guy goes off to training and a chapter later he's a professional at it. So
Yeah.
it was very important for me, especially with my characters being normal guys from Earth, right? Normal people from Earth. It was important for me for it to be believable that they not only go out and learn this power, but become adept and capable. Because as you see in book two and three, you need to be able to believe they're doing the things they're actually doing in those books. And I think a big part of why it works for my series is you had this extended training sequences in book one that weren't just training. It also grew their characters, it grew their personalities, it matured them in many ways. And it's all meant to get them ready for what comes in those later books when they are just thrust out of a cannon straight into the middle of everything.
For sure.
Yeah, that's we spend an unhealthy amount of time pondering what I don't know. I'm saying it like elitist, so I don't actually mean it this way. What lesser readers would give up on books for, and I just mean like just people who want different things out of books. But
Oh yeah.
we talk
And
all the
I
time
am
about.
sure I have lost many a reader probably because they feel it's too much training, too much kind of school or training mix. I know I've lost some that way, but we have to write it how we enjoy stories, and that's just how I enjoy a story. I couldn't just have them go and it's like this, like this, like this, and then all of a sudden they're just professionals in the next
Right.
sequence.
Yeah, it gives more depth to the story.
Well, it's got a natural flow too. It's not like immersion breaking. You're like, how is this? How was he destroying planets? He was just like lifting weights a second ago. What happened?
How did we get
Well,
here?
and that was very purposeful. I mean, the whole school scenes, I very much tried to go a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, so it's not just too much at once. And even I think between the first and second sim at the camp, they have that little mock battle thing, and that one I almost took out as well, just because it was a concern of mine. Is all this too much? But even that I think was you needed that to believe they know what they're doing in the second sim of they can be actual soldiers and follow commands and
Yeah.
do stuff like that. And I just like writing stuff like that because I feel like it's natural. You're seeing how these people are learning these actual
Yeah, that's
true things.
exactly what I was thinking of. Was it wouldn't have made sense to have them be like a squadron and have like performing soldiers if it didn't have the amount of growth that we had. It's just like, they came from Earth and they weren't in the military and they got superpowers and now
Yeah.
they're a battle squadron. It just wouldn't have made
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly where my head was at with it. But that whole subjective thing again,
Yeah.
some people just want you to literally write, he learned how to be a professional
And
general.
suddenly he was incredible.
Yep.
Well, we
So
are we're getting close to timing out here, but before we wrap up, we'd like to open the floor to you. Any message to your readers, anything you don't get to talk about that you want to talk about, anything that's like, if I really want my readers to know this, or I really want to talk about this, the floor is yours.
I'll say the big thing is if you're someone, I've been getting some new readers lately just because I'm finally getting the audiobooks out there. So I'm very excited to announce that the second audiobook should be out by the end of January. I can't give a definitive date just because that's Amazon's off brand that you upload for Audible. And they don't give you upload it and it could be anywhere from like 4 days to 3 weeks till your book actually hits the platform. You
That's
don't know.
unfortunate.
So but we should be uploading that any day. My narrator just has to make one very small change on something, and then I'll be hitting publish on it. So that should be there by the end of January. So I'm very excited about that. Other than that, it's finally getting into that writing groove again. And guys like you, I'm hoping my goal, if all goes perfect, will be to have book 4 out by the fall this year. So if that happens, you're baiting it, you'll be reading it much sooner. But that's the hope for me this year.
Awesome.
That's incredible. I'm very excited. My wife's a big audiobook person. She doesn't like to physically read, so I might be able to convince her to get into the series.
Oh,
That'd be
nice,
fun.
nice.
So
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool.
I'll tell
We
you
can talk
what. I
about
mean,
it.
you guys, if she does download it, just give it a listen. I mean, Gabe, my narrator, is absolutely phenomenal. Like, blows me away with how good he is at. Because you guys know my story. There's a gazillion different characters in it, and he just nails putting them all down perfectly well. And
Yeah. Audiobooks
and
are
it's
a
just
fun
fun.
way
It's fun to listen. He puts
re-listen.
different accents. Anyone from Quinero has a different, from that system has a completely different accent to their speech than those who are speaking, normal English, if you will. So it's just cool. It gives a whole new dynamic to the story.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being here and for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
I know you're ready for bed. You've been up since 5 a.m. writing. But thank you so much. It means a lot. I know we've been chatting since basically June, just on and off about different things in your book and whatnot. So it's cool to finally meet and talk and see you in person. And very excited for book 4. And that's what we got.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate you two giving the book a chance, reaching out when you did, and just very thankful you guys really enjoy the series. Like I said earlier, for us indie authors, it's very easy to get down in the dumps and feel like, what am I doing? Because our books, just as much as we market, it's hard to get it out there. We're not touching any Amazon algorithm or anything like that, and we're not being given the amount of keywords that trad publishers are allowed to put for their books to show up in more search algorithms. So it is very hard to get out there, and it's guys like you who just give the story a chance and just let us know you like it. That's really fuel to the fire. So I appreciate it, fellas.
Well, we're happy to do our part in feeding firewood on so we get the rest of the story.
Yes. So if you have read this, for you people listening and watching out there, make sure if you have read it, review it. Because that's, like he said, the most important thing that we can do to kind of spread the word from these books. Yeah, Dakota's got, I got the whole stack here. Why am I holding them? Look them up.
Power of the Stars books is the series.
Power of the Stars books. If we haven't convinced you to read it,
and anyone can get my
time.
novella for free if they join my readers list on my website. So Bryan will
Well, there
check it
you
out.
go. Do it for the free book. No, do it for the amazing series. Dakota, you got any final thoughts there?
No, thanks again for joining us. Super fun. One of the things we talk about that's been so fun in just starting to talk about books and reading indie books is how much of a privilege it is to be able to chat with authors about their books and about like pronunciation and ask questions while we're reading. It's super special. It's a lot more personal than it is just Wheel of Time or reading any other big series that's like, oh man, I wish I could ask the author what they were thinking when they wrote this. And it's like, well,
no, it's definitely, it's even from the author's standpoint, it's just a little surreal knowing people have interest in stuff like that. So it's fun all around to talk about that type of stuff.
well, we will go ahead and
Thanks
wrap
for
up.
watching.
Yep.
Thanks for being here. And we'll chat with you guys next time. RSQ out.
RSQ out.